What's up, guys? Coach Jared here with the not Richmond Elite podcast, the Unfair Advantage podcast. We changed that a couple episodes ago, and I keep forgetting. Today's guest is my friend Matt Steinhauser. Matt is a fellow gym rat, I would say. Actually, he might be the gym rat of Richmond Elite Performance. I would say you're probably at the gym more than anybody, other than me, maybe, like the coaches. Matt, I say you never competed in powerlifting, right, or anything?
No, I've never competed in anything. I mean, I did that, we had that, for charity event one time.
Yeah.
I think I snatched during that one time.
But very strong, dude. Let's go through some of your best numbers.
Bench 170 kilos. Deadlift was 606 pounds, which I forget what that is in kilos. And for squat, that's my worst, but I've hit 500. That's probably the best I hit.
Yeah. Stay a little closer.
Oh, my bad.
You're good. This is a lot of people. So super strong, obviously. And then recently kind of got a little bit into the Olympic lifts too. But what's cool about Matt is he is, I guess, would you consider yourself a mental health professional?
Yeah, I would say that's the best way to say it. I wouldn't go as far as expert, but that's kind of no one's really an expert on mental health. That's kind of a part of the whole process itself. So yeah, professional is a good way to say it. But I work as a clinical specialist for REM Iowa. So throughout the community, there are houses that people with disabilities can live in, whether that be a cognitive disability, a brain injury, or a mental illness or multiple mental illnesses that basically stop you from being able to live your life normally, or independently. I guess that's a better way to say that. So we house these individuals. I think we have about, 25 houses throughout Davenport. And I work with them specifically on the issues that they're having. All over the place. It can be, I use my undergrad degree, which is completely a different degree. It's actually an art, which has actually helped me in the behavioral health field quite a bit. So I use art with all of my clients, to be honest. We paint, we draw, do a lot of coloring. And during those times, that's when I really work on getting to know them, trying to figure out their situation, seeing how I can help them. And whether that be just through speaking about it, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, which is what we do for the primary, as our primary therapy, I would say, which is what people would more understand as like talk therapy, where it's like you get to know the other person and it's a give and take, where the therapist is also as involved as the client. So it's not a one-sided conversation with the client. And that's where I found like a lot of therapy falls short, is just, you can talk at someone all day, but if they're not really hearing you or actually responding in a way that's any sort of productive or helpful for you, So that's really what DBT does. But anyway, that's what I was saying. I work in the houses throughout the community with some of our individuals that are having more of a hard time adjusting to their situations. These houses are all volunteer. They're volunteering, or not volunteering, I'm sorry, but they're on their own will. They're not forced to live in these houses.
Right.
That was one of the things I didn't want to do with behavioral health, is like the, what do you call that? More of like house arrest, kind of, or the law enforcement side of things.
Sure.
I see that more as negative reinforcement for poor behavior that is not necessarily in their control all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I found really working with people works better than working against them. Imagine that, right?
Yeah. Well, and so you're also finishing up like your degree, your postgrad, or your graduate degree, right?
Correct.
And what's that going to be?
So that will be in social work. I'll have my master's of social work, looking like a year and a half from now.
Okay.
About. working during that makes it a little tough, but you know, we get by.
And so really, I just thought that Matt has a super unique perspective, both being, like I said, a gym rat, like a lifter, somebody who uses the gym to personally like help, you know, his mental health, like as I think a lot of us do. We just don't talk about it, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I wanted to talk about that both from maybe the clinical side a little bit, just kind of, you know, what you know of what you've learned in school and how that can help mental health, and then also just maybe talk about like your personal experience with it and like how, you know, the gym has helped you. Because for me, like when I first started training, definitely didn't think that was like why I trained. And then, you know, when my training shifted, you know, when I started training less and focusing more on running the business, I noticed the mental health suffered, right, because of it. And so I started to realize that, like, hey, you know, I think one of the reasons why your mental health was as good as it was before was because you put such a big priority on your training, and it was just a time to kind of get away. So anyways, I think as I've been a little bit better about training and having goals that are outside of the business and more back into the training, like I hope to have, I can definitely see how that's going to help with some of my mental health things. And I just, you know, mine's purely anecdotal. So I feel like you could, you know, maybe put a little bit better perspective on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you want to ever look up anything, just type in exercise and mental health, Google, you get a million answers right away. But I mean, through all the studies that I've read and all the, what do you call that? Not works cited. I don't know what I was going for there. Anyway, all the studies and everything we've worked on through school too, and through DBT and the work I've done, it's amazing how much exercise and just movement in general can affect your mental health and benefit your mental health. I mean, for example, one of the things I found out recently, working with one of my clients that has schizophrenia, one of the things that can happen is some of the medications that they take will work better with less fat cells in the human body. So for some reason, and I couldn't tell you why, because as far as I know, they're still trying to figure that out. But the amount of fat cells that you have stored in your body can increase, for schizophrenia at least, the amount of symptoms you have. And they have found that with increased exercise and fat loss, those symptoms go down as well without any other changes outside of medicine, you know, any of that. And I'm by no means by saying that like medicine is not the way to go. There is always, medicine is good, 100% for medicine, but medicine in conjunction with exercise has been shown to be 10 times more effective. I wouldn't say 10 times, maybe twice as effective, but definitely more effective than not doing anything at all.
I think, just to jump in, I think a lot of times it seems like you have to be one or the other. You're like pro medicine and then, you know, or pro exercise, or, I mean, there's a lot of other things that people do to help their mental health, but it's like, you know, that's a false dichotomy. Like you can have both, right? And it seems that seems to be like the lethal combination, right? The one that's going to probably be sustainable for you and, you know, lead to like a long-term result.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's the thing about exercise too, is it doesn't mean you have to do anything specifically. Like you don't have to come in and snatch and clean and jerk to get your mental health better. You just need to do something. And that's the real part that is really not taken advantage of as much as people should, is the endorphins, the norepinephrine, the epinephrine, the
basically
dopamine,
all the hormones and the, you know, the things that are going to be released when you're, you know, exercising.
Correct. Yeah. And those all benefit you both in the short term and the long term. But with the consistency, then you're getting those chemicals daily. I mean,
right. So it is long term,
yes,
right?
Exactly. But the hard part about that is the consistency and making yourself go. And I can see why people shy away from medicine in general, or get a bad stigma towards it because they're just thinking, oh, I'm just take this and I'm good. Like, I'm not working on it. Doesn't work that way. Taking the medicine's half the battle. You know, if you take it same time every day, consistently for, depending on the medicine, a year, let's say, usually a few months before it really kicks in, you're only halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to do the rest in your head. If you go in with a bad attitude, or you don't think you're going to get better, taking the medicine's not going to get you better. You have to think you're going to get better. And personally, I've experienced that through just trying to build my self-esteem and who I am as a person in the gym. It's been more beneficial than anything else I've done in my life, really, to benefit my mental health and just give me more consistency. It makes you feel more in control, I would say. And one of the things that kind of brought me towards mental health work too is, I mean, the human body is the only thing anyone ever owns. You know, your body is the only thing you will ever own in your life.
That somebody can't take away from you, right?
Yes. That is the only thing you will ever truly own. So learning how your body works, how your body moves, how it responds to certain stimuli, I find that unbelievably helpful in learning more about yourself and learning more about who you are, who you can be, where you can go. I mean, shoot, like 10 years ago, well, 10 years? How old am I now? No, it would have been closer to 15 years ago. I mean, I was like 120 pounds in high school.
Wow. You know? That's hard to believe because you're probably, what, 240?
Yeah, probably.
So about double that?
A little too close to 240 right
yeah.
now. Yeah,
I mean, you've definitely been 240.
Yeah.
Right?
But
like,
now, I mean, like, so
Jack 240.
Yeah, thanks, dude. I've had my share of my own mental health experiences, which has definitely led into, well, everyone has. And that's,
some people are less likely to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's actually a great point right there. That's a whole, not theory, I guess, but it's an approach towards mental health, which is trauma-informed care, which is that everyone around you has been through some sort of trauma in their lives that has changed who they are as a person or influenced what they do in their lives. And it's important to know that, like, just because you see someone on the street that's smiling, or, you know, you're at the gym having a good time, does not mean that that person's super happy. That's one thing with depression that can be confusing to a lot of people is people with depression can act and present themselves a lot differently than how they really feel inside. But no, I mean, through exercise and just moving in general, it helps you really understand who you are as a person. And it is difficult though. Like, the further down you get with your mental health symptoms, you know, it's the last thing you want to do is get out of bed, because especially, I mean, I'm talking more on the depression side of things here, but with your symptoms, and I mean, a lot of people get social anxiety, especially if your symptoms are a lot more prominent or obvious to people. Being in social situations is not comfortable in any way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to say, and it's kind of some magic that works.
Right. Well, and that's why I wanted to get you on, is because you have the schooling, right? You have the kind of that aspect of things, and you're going through that now. And then you also, you know, I would say you're relatively open about like your struggles with mental health. And you're willing to talk about it, right? A lot of people aren't willing to get on a platform like this and talk about it. So kind of having that combination of things, I think, provides a really cool perspective. And like I said, like, you are somebody who's in the gym, I mean, and have been, I think you've probably been here for 4 years, maybe?
Yes, it's
close to
21, I think.
Yeah, right? So 4 years, super consistent, like, and I've never seen you really deviate from that in that time. And I think that just shows that, I mean, we've talked about this, but that's partially because you need this for the mental health aspects of it, right? Yeah. So anyways, that's why I wanted to have you on and, you know, have you kind of be able to share that. And you know, a lot of us don't understand. I mean, I think it's okay to not understand the whys always, right? But I think there's enough people anecdotally that can say like, look, like this, I mean, you hear it all the time, like I need to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Right. And I think so from my perspective, you know, back a long time ago when I was training really hard, I always said like training was the hardest part of my day. And so, which it's really at the end of the day, it's hard physically, but like, it's not life. Like life's hard, right? Like dealing with loss is hard, right? Like stressors of, you know, potentially losing your job, like those kinds of things. Those are really hard. Training's hard physically and mentally, but it doesn't have the same consequences potentially, right? But for me, I always felt like I was able to trick my brain into thinking that it did, or it sure seemed like it made the rest of my life easier. Because if I put myself through this really hard training, then the rest of the day was like, oh, this is cake.
Yeah, like a breeze. Yeah.
Right. And if I didn't do the training, then I didn't necessarily have that feeling. Like the other things felt harder, right? Like I remember in college, like I remember I didn't like, you know, I wasn't the person that loved going to class, and didn't love like essentially like trying to learn things that I wasn't interested in.
Right.
But if I trained really hard that day, and then I went and sat in class, I'm like, oh, like I just get to sit here. Like, you know, this is easy. Like, you know, I get to sit here and try to like learn something. Like that's easy compared to what I just did.
Yep.
Right. So again, anecdotally, that's part of why I think that it helps me with my mental health.
No. And for me, same way. I mean, it helps me focus. It helps me calm down. I'm not an aggressive person by any means, but any sort of emotional turmoil that I experience throughout the day, the gym is a place that you can get that out. You know, it really express those emotions that you can't in any other way without hurting someone.
Sure. I think it's good, like basically to tag on what you're saying, like I think being stoic is really good in certain parts of your life, like kind of for certain things. I think being unemotional can be helpful. And so but we by nature are emotional beings, and the gym is kind of an outlet to kind of be emotional. You got to get riled up for a heavy set, or, you know, you get frustrated that you missed the set, right? Or you get excited that you made the set, and you can you can get all of those emotions out, and it doesn't have real world consequences per se.
Right.
Right. I mean, actually, I'll take that back. The real world consequences are always positive, essentially, because you're exercising. You're literally improving your health, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's I guess, you know, pretty much whether it's I missed that lift, like most likely it still was hard and it still improved you in some way, right? Or if you made the lift, it still improved you in some way. If you had to get hyped up or whatever, it's like at the end of the day you still exercised, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably healthier because of it.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's something you see with a lot of people that have experienced addiction too. A lot of people that experience addiction, they turn to working out once they don't have that, because you get the same chemicals released. Maybe not, I mean,
Sure.
not maybe, but they're definitely not in the same doses or concentration, but you are naturally able to produce those with your brain by exercising. Drugs are just a cut, you know, a shortcut to get that without the hard work involved, basically. But those are naturally occurring chemicals in your brain, and you can access them just by getting up and doing
That's
something.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane to really think about, but
I've heard a lot of stories about people who have struggled with substance abuse. There's a lot of programs out there actually that you know, get people involved in exercise, and it's, you know, I think personally I was born with a bit of an addictive personality. I've been, you know, fortunate enough to never you know, go that direction. But we know I drink way too many Monsters, right? And I get addicted to, like I go down rabbit holes, and I go, you know, and I kind of go all in on things, and I really dive into them. And again, I think there's a lot of people out there like me or like that maybe they just chose the wrong thing to get addicted to. And, you know, I think that if somehow, again, I'm not the mental health professional, so I don't necessarily know how you go about this, but if they could figure out a way to get addicted to exercise, right? Or I think I'm addicted to progress. I think that's like my addiction is like, I need to see production, right, in my life. I need to see that I'm moving forward.
I like to see self-improvement.
Yeah. And whether it can be in different parts of my life, right? But at the end of the day, as an example, like sometimes you're in a career where advancement is not really possible, or it's not possible in the short term, right? Most careers, I would say, are like that, right? Like, you know, you make a certain amount of money and you are probably going to do the same job for a very long time, right? And so I think people struggle because they're like, okay, well, I'm again addicted to that progress, but now really there's no progress to be made in this part of my life. So I think they shut down, or they might turn to something else where, okay, maybe now it's time to progress in your fitness, right? Your health, right? Your strength, whatever it is. And I think you can kind of bounce back and forth with and then there's other things, obviously, your relationships, right? But again, for me, I know I'm addicted to like progress, and I always want to see that I'm improving in some area of my life, right?
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. It's a hard slope on the addiction side because, I mean, it is possible to be addicted to exercise, but I don't think that's where you're going with that. And I do agree. It's just I hesitate to say, like, you know, it's a good addiction,
Right?
Because, you know, no such thing. But
Sure.
if you do need to do something to get your emotions out, and everyone does. That's the thing is, human beings are emotional, social creatures. We are meant to be moving. I mean, we're nomadic, you know, we're supposed to be walking all day. We're supposed to be hunting, gathering, all that stuff. And 8 hours at a desk doesn't quite do it for most people. And it's not fulfilling. Even if that part of your career can be fulfilling, then you're still not meeting the needs of your own body, which is where I think a lot of people fall off. And I'm not saying like you have to look a certain way or do this or that to be a good person. It's just you got to do something. It doesn't matter what, just do something. Because, I mean, like every study we've ever seen, I mean, you want to slow down aging, start moving, you know?
I think it also, for me, goes back to, and I've been pretty open about this recently, and it builds a lot of confidence, right? It helps build a lot of self-esteem, and I think it does so by, to me, confidence is built through essentially providing yourself proof that you can do the things that you think that you want to do, right? Yeah. And so what is fitness? It's like, I want to live, you know, I want to do this thing. And then you work towards it, and eventually you accomplish it. So you give yourself proof that it's possible, that you can do that. And I think when you start giving yourself proof of accomplishments in certain parts of your life, that can carry over to others, right? And so I think, I don't want to say it's an easy way to do that, but it's a simple way. It's a simple way to give yourself proof to, like, hey, if I set my mind to this, I can achieve that. And if I can do that in the gym, why can't I do that in my business or in my relationships or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Right. And so I know for me, that's where I derive a lot of my confidence from. And I think that's where I miss out when I'm not, pushing my fitness where I should.
Yeah, no, it's progressive overload in life. I mean, you slowly take on more and you're able to handle more. And that's the same way with mental health too. And that's getting back to that point you had made about how, like, after you work out, you know, the day is a little more, it's easier to do. It puts a lot in, it can put stuff in perspective when you physically exert yourself. It really, it does obviously get all those chemicals out, but you also get a lot of the emotions that you've had packed in, especially as a man, to be honest, because we don't talk about our feelings. That's not a thing, really. Which, again, that's part of what brought me into the behavioral health field, because there are not a lot of men. And there's no...
Especially not a lot of men that hang out, like, in the circles that we do, maybe. Like, the fitness, like, the more masculine
Sure.
activities. circles. I don't know, like you want to call it that, but it just is what it is. Like you can, generally speaking, like people that do the things that we do, they fall in this category that is like, we're hardcore, right? We work hard. We don't complain, right? And that's what I think a lot of people, I think that's why they don't share, because I think they feel like they're complaining, right? Or, that nobody really cares, right? And so anyways, I think it's even more prominent in like the circles that we're kind of in.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And most people just keep that inside or go home and drink. I mean, that's really what a lot of people do. It's amazing how many people are alcoholics or functioning alcoholics, just working through that. And that that's a hard cycle to break too. I mean, it's an understandable one to get into because you are lacking something. There's something in your life that is not there that you feel like should be there.
Do you think, and I'm like, and again, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because I feel like I can learn. And so again, I experience things anecdotally. I kind of see things. I'm not in the clinical setting, right? Yeah. Do you think that thing that they're lacking could be like a purpose essentially, or, like a reason essentially? Because that's what I would find.
I would say, a confidence, or even really self-confidence, really seeing value in yourself. And I know it kind of sounds stupid, like moving weight makes you valuable. Not exactly, but it does show you that you are capable of things that you didn't think. Like, 15 years ago when I was 120 pounds, I never thought I'd have 500 pounds on my back. I just thought that's impossible, not a chance in the world. But, 15 years later, I can do that because I took the time.
Progressive overload, right?
Exactly. But also, you got to believe in yourself that you can do these things. And that's a hard part too, especially for a lot of people with ADHD or even without. You don't see immediate results. You do get the endorphin boost. Yeah, you feel good. You feel like you got an exercise, but that is a temporary thing. If you want the long-term results, you got to do it 4 or 5 days a week minimum. You've got to be consistent, and you got to do diet too. That's the hard part.
I got a cool one. I don't remember where I heard this, and I'll figure it out because I want to give this person credit. But their theory was that like fitness is so addictive because it's the only thing where you get long-term, the progress is long-term, right? You said it takes a long time to see results, but you get a preview while you're getting a pump. You get a preview of your future self,
I like
right? When you get a pump.
Yeah.
It's like you get a pump, right? Like you do a lot of curls or whatever, right? And at the end of your workout, you look different than at the beginning of your workout.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's like a preview. It's like, again, it's a short term because you don't look way different, right? But you definitely look different. And so it kind of gives you that preview of like, hey, if I stick with this, I'm going to look like this without a pump soon.
Yeah.
Right. And then you just kind of do that over and over again. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think that's
like
part
that.
of it, why it's addictive. Cause you're like, oh, I do see like the pump goes away, but it is kind of very short term in a sense. Right.
It is. And I mean, but there is even that feeling is great.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. There is an addiction to that you can get too. It's just, but again, that's not a bad addiction really, is trying to, you're just feeling all the blood flow through your muscles and the oxygen getting there. I mean, you're just feeling what your body is able to do in those at that time. But yeah, I think it is important. And I mean, one of the things that I've always thought is just being able to see what I can be, what I'm capable of physically. I think there's a lot of people just don't really care, or just think that, you see like a really good CrossFitter doing some upside down handstands and stuff. And it's like, that's insane. I'm never going to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, you can't just walk in there and go straight to that. But he didn't, or she didn't walk in there and go straight to handstand push-ups. You build yourself from normal push-ups to pull-ups to, I mean, I'm not great with CrossFit, so I don't know exactly how you progress in that one. But, it's not something that you're just going to walk in one day. You have a good, you get a good pump and you're cured. You know, it doesn't work like that. There's no, to be honest, there's no cures.
The skill, yeah. And I think that's like, I love sports, right? And so for me, before fitness was sports, and even like my fitness is a sport, right? When I compete in something, and again, for me, it's because I want to prove to myself, and if I'm being honest, I want to prove to others too. Like, if I'm being honest, that I can do the thing that I said. Like, and again, I think that gives you confidence in yourself. But if I'm being honest, I mean, I think it gives you credibility in social circles that you are somebody who does what you say you're going to do, right? Absolutely. You're kind of like a person who follows through.
Yeah. And
right.
I mean, yeah, back to the thing I had said too before, just about the like body being the one thing you own. I mean, look at and I watched some documentaries about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he said similar things to that, where it's really, I mean, you are showing that your body's that reflection of your capabilities and your determination, you know? So if you are doing the things you say you can do, you're proving it. Your body will show, and it will reflect your abilities it slowly changes over time.
Of course.
As with all things, but yeah, I mean, the weight doesn't lie. That's the nice thing about it.
And I think even aside from the body, it's like when you see somebody that goes to the gym consistently, I mean, I'm going to be honest, like, if I was hiring somebody, even though I own a gym, like, I would look for somebody who fitness is a priority, because it also teaches that multitasking, or kind of like, you know, having like kind of you can bucket your time, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people struggle with kind of bucketing their time and their energy, and saying, what I mean by that is, you know, hey, if you're having personal issues, it carries into your work life, right? Or whatever, where I think if you're somebody who's into fitness, you've learned that, hey, when I'm here, right? That stuff goes away, kind of. Same thing when you're at work, mm-hmm. right? So I know I own a gym, and I hire people who obviously are going to be familiar with the gym. But if I didn't own a gym and I owned a different business, I think I would still subconsciously maybe lean towards people who are able to be fitness oriented along with the other things.
Yeah. I mean, it also shows that they care for themselves, that they have value in themselves, because a lot of people will look at fitness or going to the gym, like, let's say, I mean, what, an hour and a half, hour to 2 hours a day that people go. A lot of people will look at that and be like, that's kind of selfish, right? You're prioritizing yourself.
100%.
It's not. Don't listen to those people.
Yeah.
Be selfish.
I mean,
it's important. You need to work on yourself. And people don't take enough time to think about themselves or be themselves and work on who they can be. And again, it doesn't have to be the gym. It could be anything. Just get outside or do something. Just don't be, I mean, video games are great, but you're not physically exerting yourself. Your brain is not going to release what it wants to.
Sure. I think, like, if people just replace the time they spend on certain things with other things, I think that, like, everybody complains about not having enough time to go to the gym, right? That's a pretty big one. Mm-hmm. As a gym owner, you're like, oh, I just, you know, when we get cancellations, it's like, I just don't have the time. It's like, okay, well, let's see, what's the day look like for you, right? And it almost always is not that you don't have time. It's that you aren't willing to replace certain things with other things, right?
It's not the priority.
Right. Yeah. And so, you know, I'm a big believer in, you know, personally, again, a lot of people play video games. I have nothing against it. I played video games a lot in my life, right, growing up. But for me, I only have so much time. And if I had more time, maybe I would play video games, right? But again, for me, it's like, hey, this is how much time I have in my day. I would say I would rather allocate it in this direction, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a little bit off topic or kind of a sidebar, but basically it's the same as, you know, I have a lot of friends that sports bet, and a lot of them do it for fun, and I think, you know, that's perfectly fine. I I challenge them that if any of them that think that they're actually going to make money, like in the long term, I would say like, what if you just spent the amount of time that you're taking right now betting on sports and just actually work the job, or like put it towards building an actual business or like an actual side hustle, right? Some sort of actual money making like venture, like a legitimate one. It's gonna ruffle some feathers, but it's like if you know, a lot of these guys are spending hours betting when watching the games that they're betting on, right? Or betting or researching things before they bet to, you know, again, hope to win, like increase their odds to win the bet.
Or
it's like
watching reviews of
right,
other people telling you how they think this is. Yeah,
exactly, right. So I just think in that scenario, it's like, hey, if you just replace that with something that actually for sure makes you money, at the end of it, you're going to have a lot more money, right? So I think in the same way is, I think a lot of people, they want to be in better shape, and they spend a lot of time doing things that, you know, they think potentially could help them get in better shape. Like, I don't know, like they watch YouTube videos on the gym, right? Or whatever, but then they never actually go to the gym.
Right.
Right. It's like, do the thing that's actually going to work, you know, and just put the time that you're spending. Like if you could just take some of that time that you're spending on certain things and put it towards the, like productive things. Again, that's where I struggle. And I think the reason I don't play video games is because I'm addicted to that productivity, and I struggle with feeling like I'm being productive. I mean, it's not even a good trait. It's something like when my wife and I are watching a show, I have a hard time concentrating on the show because I'm like, I'm not being productive right now. I'm watching a TV show.
Yeah, no, I still play video games, and occasionally I'll be like,
in the middle of the game,
I'll stop because I feel like I need to be doing something else. I'm like, this is not this is not using my time wisely. Like occasionally, yeah, you know, it's fine after, same way as TV, but it's a luxury.
Well, and I think kind of going back to how if you go to the gym, then the rest of your day is easier. It's also like, I guess to add on to that, one of the big things is if I go to the gym and I don't get anything else done the rest of the day, I still feel like I had a pretty productive day.
I do too.
Right? And so that would be, again, I don't play a lot of video games, but like those are the days, if I have a really good workout and when I'm training hard, where I probably could sit and watch a show and focus on the show because, again, I felt like I got a good workout in. Otherwise, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I didn't work out today, or my training session sucked. Well, okay, well then I need to improve in some other aspect, so I need to go focus on this while I'm watching this show.
Yeah.
Where if I got a good workout in, maybe I got a good day of work in, it's like, hey, now I'm okay to go play that video game or watch that show, right?
And when you do, it's more rewarding. Like you feel okay. You know, you don't feel like you're wasting your time at that point because you feel accomplished already.
Yeah.
No, that is absolutely something I can relate to there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what's kind of the goals for you coming up? I know you got school for another
about a year and a half.
Yeah. And then I guess like, is there a type of social work that you want to get into? Do you plan to work at schools or?
I mean, that's a good question. I like the field I'm in now by way of, working with adults with behavioral issues. Working with kids is a whole different story. That's a different mentality. That's a very tough field to be in. Not that working with adults is easy by any means, but I feel like I thrive a little better in the adult care world. But anyway, yeah, I do see myself continuing working with people with behavioral health issues. One thing I've always, I talked to you about this too, is kind of the integration of therapy and working out. And I talked to you too about how basically like a personal trainer is practically a counselor, you know? I mean, people, and that's another thing.
Not a trained one, but.
No, unlicensed counselor.
Yeah, we're unlicensed, but I've literally had a dad, I think I told you this, right? I had a dad go, yeah, you're a cheap therapist for my son or something like that. Yeah. I was like, oh, really? I'm like, well, I need to raise my rates then.
But really, though, I mean, because again, with the release of all those chemicals while you're working out, you are experiencing those emotions, and the trainer is the one person there talking to you one-on-one. I mean, it gets pretty intimate. It's a pretty personal thing to do with someone else.
And you're seeing them a lot. Like, it's very frequent, right? Like, most people, I mean, minimum getting trained once a week, minimum, right? So.
But also, it's the one-on-one attention, too. Like, how often does anyone get that, you know?
Right. And so, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a big part of what we do. Is it's not just about again, we're not licensed or anything like a licensed therapist, but when we coach youth athletes, like a big part of what we do is the mindset part. Yeah. Right. And we deal with kids that come in from bad days of school, right? And you learn how to deal with that. And here's the thing, like, you can relate to it, right? As somebody who, like, one thing I tell parents when they come in for the first time is that all of our coaches are relatively younger coaches, and I think that does help the kids relate to us a little bit better. Yeah. And I said, we've been in their shoes not that long ago, right? And so when they come in, or if they miss a lift that, or something like that, and they get down, like, we're able to relate to them a lot. I think that's another reason that the kids like to be here, that we have such a great, membership base, is that we talk about life. We joke about, girls or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not just about training. Like, I think hard training can happen while, talking about a lot of different things.
Yeah,
right?
No, absolutely. And that is one of the things that brought me towards this gym rather than other gyms. Is it's, at commercial gyms, it's more about everyone for themselves. You're kind of just fending
Put your
off.
headphones in
and zone in, get rid of everyone else. You just need the blinders on. But here it's more of like that community aspect, and that's one of the things I've noticed specifically about more CrossFit or Olympic weightlifting gyms,
like a box style gym, right? Yeah. That's what we call it. Yeah.
It's a lot more community oriented, and people, I don't know, they feel a lot more welcome. Yeah. It feels a lot less intense, or like you're under scrutiny from other people. That's one of the things about the commercial gyms that a lot of people don't like is, you're out in the public. You don't really know all these people. But in the smaller gym aspect, you get to know. I mean, we have, how many people here?
We actually have about 250 members.
Oh,
now.
Dang. I was going to say I know most of them, but I don't know.
That's, I was going to say, now that we have like both sides of things, like
but I mean, still, it's still a smaller community.
Yeah. When you started coming here, I should look it up. I bet you were here when we had about 50 members.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was like around 100 something.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, that was
started.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's just, we've steadily grown. And right now we've grown a lot. And like I said, we have a lot of, that's with all of our youth athletes, right? So yeah, you maybe have 100. We have about 100 youth athletes. That's probably, honestly, we have about 100 youth athletes. Probably have about 100 for like adult group fitness side of things. So that leaves us with about 50 that's like open gym, Olympic weightlifting, strength, powerlifting, that kind of thing. So, and those, like, those are kind of like a lot of the people that we talk to a lot, right? And can kind of relate to us. But anyways, I'm curious, like, how would you, if somebody, let's say, adult or youth athlete is, feeling like they struggle with mental health, and let's say they're already going to seek help, from a professional, how would you recommend that they, start going to the gym? Maybe they haven't been going to the gym. What's kind of like your advice as far as that goes?
Well, I guess it depends person to person, obviously, but mostly for the person, really, if you're struggling to even get out, just having one thing that you enjoy, find an exercise that you enjoy.
A type of exercise. Like, I'm an Olympic weightlifter, right? Like,
but it could be hiking, bouldering.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be in the gym even, right?
And it doesn't have to be so intense either. It can be jogging, taking a walk through the mall with your friends. It doesn't really matter. You just have to do something.
I know a lot of people that jogging is like a huge, like just, they're runners and they run for mental health reasons, and they start becoming addicted to it, or they love it, right? And
that runner's high is a real thing. You really do get that.
I don't get it, but they
you haven't gotten it? I have to go for like 30 minutes before it like hits.
Okay, well, maybe that's why I've never gotten it, but I've never gotten a runner's high. I'll tell you that.
But that's the thing about, and back to what I had said too, is like the DBT, the dialectic behavioral therapy. There are core aspects of that which are based on Eastern religions, but the thing is, what I've found is that a lot of DBT kind of coincides with a lot of training as well, because. So, I mean, the core components are like mindfulness. So who you are as a person, where you are, what you're doing, you want to be present in the moment. But and then distress tolerance, which again, lifting, over time, you will be able to tolerate more distress because of that progressive overload. And that works in all aspects of life. And even, so let's say for lifting, it does build that confidence subconsciously. It's like, I know that if I put my head to it, I can continue building more muscle. But I also know that if I put my head to it, like that kind of proved to me that I can do that in other aspects of life too. That if you stay consistent with it, things will change.
Kind of teaches you that long-term discipline, right?
Yeah.
That, things worth building aren't going to happen overnight, right? I guess, how did you get into like strength training or exercise or...
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
For Olympic weightlifting,
I mean, even before that, because you had lifted a lot before you ever came here.
Yeah, I mean, I took I never played sports in high school.
So did you start lifting in college?
Yeah, so I would have started my late senior year of high school, but by started I mean I probably went in and did like bicep, tricep.
Yeah,
hit some
bro muscles.
Yeah, get the hell out of there. But no legs, of course. But over time, you kind of understand that doesn't really. I mean, sure, it does a little bit, but you've got a whole body. And for me personally, my legs are about 60% of my body.
Yeah.
Most people is like 50, but really though is you got to hit legs too, and that's really where your main muscles that you're gonna release the actual endorphins.
So you started training for real in college, basically.
I would say so, late college, probably after I stopped bartending, mainly because I tried lift. I did lift through that, but it is difficult to make that balance, especially working long nights and then also drinking does not help. I mean, the protein synthesis goes down.
Yeah,
all the
the
stuff.
recovery.
Recovery alone.
Hangovers are, right?
And that was one of the things that I started noticing too. Is the hangovers. Eventually, you start. Not for everyone, but if you have mental health issues, what happens is when you take a drug, specifically for this one, alcohol, you're basically shooting your synapses for. Dopamine and serotonin. So you're flooding your brain with a lot of these drugs. But then when that's gone, your brain's like, what the hell? I got to start doing this naturally again.
Right.
Because
everything is an adaptation.
Yes,
I think that is the biggest.
That's the word I was trying to get.
If anybody could realize that anything in life, that is probably the biggest thing people need to get through their head, is that every single thing in life, you are a biological organism that wants to adapt to its surroundings to survive.
Yep.
Right. And so, if you take a lot of things in, right, or that cause you to produce certain hormones or whatever, your body's less likely to produce those hormones on their own.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same thing with muscles. You're building muscles in adaptation to training.
Yeah.
Your body's going, wow, that thing was really hard. I better build a little bit more muscle so that he's, when he does that to me again someday, I'm more prepared for it. That's an adaptation, right? Yep. It's all an adaptation. So I think goes back to, though, is when you adapt to hard living, hard training, then the rest of your life gets easier because you are adapted to doing something hard every day, right? So the rest of you're adapted to that. So everything else feels easy. When your life is easy, I mean, think about it. Some people got, they've been pampered, right? Their whole life's been pretty cake. And then something bad happens and it's like,
end of the world.
yeah, exactly. Where if you've lived a tough life in certain aspects, and here's the thing, we don't wish a tough life on anybody, but the gym is almost a way for you to manufacture that tough life in like a short, span,
That's well
right?
said, yeah.
Where back in the old days, you had to like scrounge for your food and like every day was tough,
Yeah.
right? Well, nowadays we don't need to do that. We have it all given to us. So we have to manufacture like a hard part of our life in order to make the rest of our life a little easier.
That's well said. I like that.
I've thought a lot about it.
Yeah, that's a good one though. But yeah, no, that's good because that's exactly what you're doing. And you're also teaching yourself that you can work through those things. And I mean, yes, physically, but there is a whole mental aspect to the gym too. I don't come here every day thinking I want to hit all your 8 down sets that you're giving me, but I still do it because I know it will make me better in the end and I will be able to get there. And it sucks in the moment and I'm cursing you the whole time, but I do it,
Yep.
But then the next week you throw in another set and it's like, I hate you, but I'm going to do it because I know I can, because I did 3 last week and this week I'm going to do 4.
But also, why do I make you do it? Because you're adapted to
Exactly.
What he's talking about is as the training progresses, in order to add volume to our training, we add what we call down sets. So the program might say, hey, build to a heavy set of 5 back squat, then take 10% off and do 1 more set of 5 with that weight. So you add some volume to the training. Well, then the next week might say build to a heavy set of 5 and then take 10% off and do 2 sets of 5 at 90%, right? And that's because now you've adapted to 1 set, so we need to basically make it harder, right? And then it's maybe 3, and obviously there's different factors that go into that, but the idea is that if you just kept doing 1 down set forever, your body adapts to that, and now it has no reason to make a change.
That's your baseline.
Right? That's your baseline. So if you just do the same thing all the time, there's no reason for your body to change. We're like, we're good. This is pretty easy. Don't need to change. If you add more volume over time, they're like, my God, these dude just keeps working. I need to build muscle so that we have more muscle ready for what's to come.
Yeah, because if your body's getting hit, because it is that adaptation, if you get tired after working for so long. It's the same thing with exercising. And then you can slowly build that. And shoot, they talked about it in Greece thousands of years ago. That's where progressive overload first started, which is amazing. Even back then they knew that the human body can adapt to unimaginable conditions with crazy changes overnight. It truly is a marvel how much the body can do. And that's another thing I really like about training too, is it shows you what you can do. Again, like with a lot of people with self-doubt, you don't think you're able to do these things, but you can slowly change that mentality over time. And I think that's important, especially in mental health. Which bleeds over into every aspect of everyone's lives, and everyone's affected by it in some manner, not necessarily to the point where not everyone will, be diagnosed or have that something, a deficit, I guess you could say, or something that is not there. Not everyone's like that, but people will all experience depression throughout their lives. Absolutely. Everyone will be depressed. So understanding that when you get in those situations, you can get through them because you're strong enough to do that. That's, it's an invaluable thing to have. And it sounds silly, but just going to the gym every day can do that, which you don't even really have to do it consciously. A lot of subconsciously that'll happen.
Yeah, I agree. So to wrap it up, would you say basically like find an exercise, something that you enjoy doing, and stick with it for a little while, right? Like I think people are like, well, I tried this. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy that. What do they say about alcohol? It's an acquired taste, right? Like stick with it for a little bit. You might find that you enjoy it, right? You might enjoy the results that you get from it, right?
Yeah, I mean, not right away. It's hard right away, but that's everything, you know. Once you got to get over that learning curve. I mean, I dreaded lifting when I really
100%.
first started. I hated it. I didn't want to do it, but now that's not necessarily like I don't necessarily look forward to it every day, but it is a part of my day, and my day feels like I don't. It would feel like if I skipped going to the gym on a day I'm supposed to go, it would feel like I didn't sleep for a night. You know, it throws you off. It throws your whole rhythm off.
I feel like I'm in a bad mood. I mean, and I think I've been told, my wife like would tell me like, you need to go work out. Like you need to train. Like, especially again, like when I was training hard, like, because I was so anxious about the fact that I hadn't trained that day.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I'm no expert, but in my anecdotal experience, like it's just a huge part of my life, and I attribute a lot of my success to it. So
I would too. To be completely honest, I would do the same for myself. While my career has not been necessarily in the fitness industry, it has always been not the fitness industry, but the gym has always been a fallback for me, and it is that daily therapy.
It's a constant in your life, right?
It is, yeah. It's something I can always count on the weights to be heavy. You know, like
they don't lie. The weights
they
don't
do
lie.
not.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again, man, for coming on. This has been really cool, and maybe we'll get you on here in the future, and hopefully I'm gonna get you competing in something. I'd really like to see you compete, and I've talked to him before about this, so we'll see if it happens. But
maybe one day we'll see.
Awesome.
But
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Jared.
Appreciate it.
It's a good time.